and welcome once again to Sister Talk. We are glad that you can join us once again. My name is Linda Talam. Today we are going to deal with the topic parenting in a modern world. In the recent weeks, we've heard of children and teenagers running away from home, engaging in sex orgies, parties, drug abuse, stripping and all that. And this has jolted many parents to come to realize that what are we losing our children? Is there a gap? What are we doing wrong? And these are some of the questions that we are going to ask today with our panelists. And we hope that whoever is watching today, a parent or a parent to be, you're going to employ this wisdom and this understanding and knowledge in your children and even those who you are guarding. We pray that you will be engaged and that you will be changed and transformed using this talk show today. So in our panel today, once again, we have Dr. Judy Ogweno, an expert in child development, a teacher and chaplain at State House Girls. Dr. Judy Ogweno is also an author of Pillar Daughters and Study Oak Sons. Once again, karibu sana to the show. We are glad to have you.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And today we also have Reverend Lois Okello, who is a counseling psychologist and a director at Ultimate Care Links. Karibu.
Thank you so much for having me in the show.
We are glad to have you today for the very first time.
Very appreciative.
Yeah.
And I thank God for the leadership of this church.
Well, so just tell us, how long have you been in the counseling psychologist? Or
Basically, it's over 20 years.
Wow.
Beginning at high school, because I was previously a high school teacher, before studying psychology and then going into full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I've been in various universities. My last assignment actually was at Pan Africa University as a dean of students, which I was there up to this year, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, nice. Both of you are actually teachers.
Sure.
So it means you have really interacted with, children from all ages, from the young ones to the older ones.
Actually, I think that is one of the greatest gifts that maybe God has allowed us to have, and particularly seeing young people moving from Form 1 and going out into Form 4, and then occasionally and or regularly meeting them in the world. I think it's one of the most beautiful things.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing Dr. Judy mentioned last time when they are going for their weddings and they are coming to bring you gifts.
Oh, yes.
That's interesting. So last week during our show on parenting in the 21st century, we dealt on some issues including parenting styles, discipline, social media, and also the issue of homosexuality. Today in our show, we are going to go deeper on these issues, especially on discipline, the social media, sex and sex education, and also we are going to tackle the issue of homosexuality or LGBTQ. So without much ado, Dr. Ogweno, last time you mentioned something to do with discipline, and you mentioned the issue of causing a child to develop self-discipline. Could you elaborate a little bit on what is this self-discipline?
All right. Thank you, Linda. Self-discipline, well, we don't use a word to define a word. But self-discipline means that the individual takes charge of almost every aspect of their lives, unless that which now God Almighty, is in control, and they try to do their best to align it to a certain vision. If I may move further to what I have seen over time, because most of my experiences, I will talk from real life experiences that I've had with students, that self-discipline will not come unless you know where you are going, unless you have a vision. So based on that, among other things, I would say that a child, a student, anybody can learn self-discipline as long as they have now what is called a purpose and then the vision. Where do I want my life to be in the next 20 years? That will govern who they relate to, who they talk to, how they spend their time, and everything concerning that person. So that act of governing our lives around a certain vision is what is now called the disciplining, or causing our bodies or causing our mind to be tuned towards a certain direction.
So the ability to focus on something and to actually, come to achieve that.
Yes, and not just focusing, but also recognizing that there are threats, there are maybe management, they talk of SWOT analysis. You evaluate everything else around you, including what can stop me from achieving these things, and you avoid them. What is it that can make me achieve what I want, and you indulge in them? Who can lead me where I'm going? You make those networks. For me, self-discipline is the entire body, the entire person. Body, I mean not a dead person. I mean an entire focus of this physical being and the spiritual being combined, leading towards a certain way, okay, in life. Such that if somebody came, let me say I was self-disciplined, and Linda, you came and you told me, hey, you're supposed to be preparing for class.
Yeah.
Oh, please, let's just go and have a talk outside there. You know, the first thing, I will not allow that to happen, because I'm thinking I must budget my time. I must, at this particular time, I had purpose that I would be doing this and this. So Linda, kindly, can we reschedule? However, I am not saying that if there's an emergency, now that I'm self-disciplined, I don't attend to people and to emergency. But I'm just saying it's directing our lives. Yeah.
But then also being flexible.
Yes.
But then looking at it in the aspect of parenting, Reverend Lois, how can a parent bring a child to come to a place of being self-disciplined?
I think I'm really glad about what Dr. Ogwena said, but then I just want to put it this way, that discipline for anyone, and particularly we're talking about discipline beginning at the formative years, a child grows up and they have to be trained. They have to be trained, and I think I love when the Bible says train. Now, and training then means you model that kind of discipline, and you also teach. And you see, teaching means you plan and you do schemes of work and you work around everything else that would help a child to learn the skill that you want them to learn. Then it also means that you have got to put them into practice. You know, it's like you give them the opportunities to be able to explore whether they have learned. And after they have explored where they do well, they are affirmed. I think what many, and I usually now like using this word caregivers. Any caregiver who is working with a child who needs to be trained to learn skills, what we are missing a lot is affirmation. And what we do a lot as caregivers is noticing the negatives without affirming first. So if someone is to do self-discipline, they must be trained, because they do not know the how. Yeah.
So in the process of teaching or training a child, we should focus more on, being affirmative as a caregiver, as a parent, or as a guardian, rather than, dwelling on, you did not do this. I said do this, you did not do it.
Yeah.
We can look at, at least they did something that was right. You affirm that, in the process correct the areas that were wrong.
Yeah, it's beautiful to train someone, because the moment you adopt a training mode and attitude, you will want that person that you're training to demonstrate that they have learned and they have the skills. Then when we develop that training attitude, then it means we'll be patient with this person, we'll allow them to make mistakes, but we will motivate them to achieve the goal, like Dr. was saying, the goal that we want them to do. So you realize then the responsibility of training and making these young people have skills is actually on the caregiver. And I use the word caregiver because parents are caregivers, the church is a caregiver, the community we live in is a caregiver, a neighbor is a caregiver. All the extended relatives, we become now caregivers, that we ensure that we have a goal and we are making sure that this child is brought up in a way that can be able to benefit them and the community at large.
Yeah. So if you're just tuning in, you're watching Sister Talk, feel free to interact with us on the SMS lines that are going below your screen. Send us a text, tell us where you're watching from, and if you have a question, you can, shoot it to us. So Dr. Ogweno, looking at, the training aspect, Would we say that, self-discipline should start from a very young age? When a child is being trained on issues like sleep training, potty training, and mention all those trainings. Should a parent start from there, or we wait until they're teenagers?
Oh, if you are waiting until they are teenagers, when they are trying to be independent, then the struggle will be greater. However, all people can be trained. Yes, we must start from that level. You remember last week we said that even a child who cannot talk and see, when they are breastfeeding and the mother rebukes them using the word or does this on the cheek, they already know those signals. So as we continue the disciplining from our part, there are certain things that now we will allow the child now to make them their own. Hence the word self. Whether the mother or father is not there, this child will take the, assuming they are very young, you start telling them, when you have your food, carry your plate to the kitchen. They may not reach the sink, but the first aspect is carry this plate to the kitchen. The fact that they'll do that whether you are there or not, those are indicators that now the self is getting the discipline, as opposed to just all the time being told, we can have this discipline. Like in schools, we talk of instilling discipline, but we can do a lot more that we are screaming and shouting, as opposed to watching from afar and seeing a class carry out activities or do something, and you finally say, wow, the training Reverend talked about has taken place. But it starts from as long as the child is growing alive, there are various, milestones and things that allow you to implement what you need the child to discipline in the various areas.
Let's talk about rules. We live in a generation where the teenagers and young adults know their rights, and they can somehow quote for you the Constitution of Kenya. And as a parent, we need rules to govern our children. What would be some of the negotiables and non-negotiables when setting up rules for a house?
Thank you so much. And because Dr. is a writer, when we talk about training, I think somebody wrote, I can't remember the book, but it talks about so many young people and young adults are walking around with untrained minds. Now, coming to what you're talking about rules, I think over and above all, there's a responsibility that is given to any caregiver or any parent who has brought a child into this world. And the rules, I think the ultimate goal of any rule has to do with safety, one, and two, has to do with values. And then the other issue has to do with futuristic things.
So you've said values.
It is value, safety, values, and future.
Looking into the future. They are 40 years old.
So looking into the future means that when the child is struggling with a child to pass exams at this level, in that Form 1, Form 2 level, we're looking at Form 4, and we're looking at the university, and we're looking at the job market. So it means that what we are calling rules per se in life and interaction should basically be looked at in that level. And as long as they meet the safety and they meet the values and they meet the progress and development for the future, I don't see what we need to negotiate about, because at every given time, there are basic rules that will work. And a particular time, it just means that the person becomes more responsible. So there are certain rules that they take they take up their self-responsibility. But others, some people must be able to supervise them and ensure that they continue until they become what we would call independent, but there's never been absolute independence.
So even when we talk about, self-discipline and self-governing, most of the people or young adults who have grown into adulthood, if you follow their lives, those who are self-governed and all that, they come from a family that affirmed them. They had rules. They knew what to do when and what not to do. So if we look at rules, Dr. Ogweno, should their parents develop also consequences? And measurable consequences for, if we said this, it should be done and it is not done. What should we do?
Like somebody said, parenting has no manual. But there are those who parented before.
Yeah.
We can learn from them. Experience can help us learn.
Yeah.
And some, you don't need to do trial and error in everything, but some you will, because that child is totally independent, not independent, but unique in their own way. Now, talking about the rules where you started, the first thing that came to my mind was the same Constitution of Kenya, Children's Act. I think I still remember 20-something. It is so clear on the rights of a child, and I think the last time I checked, they're about 17. But there's a part that is never read, the responsibilities. And there are 5 of them. And I'm always, when I talk to my students, whether the children in my home or the ones, I always remind them, in as much as you have these rights, right to your names, I'll call you by your name, don't complain, right to nationality, being a Kenyan and wherever else you want to be, but the responsibility, and the specific one responsibility that I keep reminding them, that one of your responsibility is to make sure where you are, including your home, is better. Respect to older people, that's part of your responsibility, because our Constitution is engraved in the values that she talked about. So when you talk about those rules, I remind them that rules come with responsibility. And number 2, nobody can live in this world and say, I have no rules. Remember last time I was giving an example of, well, again, I use my example of my students. One who was like, you know what, my parents give me permission to do everything, and I feel I'm not loved. I was shocked by that statement, but over time I've now understood. What she meant was like, you are saying your mom told you to be back at home by 5. For her, she was seeing this other parent as being loving, to have control and authority over this child. But for her, she was allowed to do everything. And she was feeling, you don't love me if you allow me to do that.
It's like you don't care.
You don't care. So really, rules should be there. But I think I would step it up by also saying, like she said, as an adult, you've lived, Waswahili wanasema kuishi kwingi kuona mengi. So there are certain things I have seen that I'll get in my house and say, you know what, this and this and this, we are going to do like this, because they've not yet grown old enough to know where we are going. But there are those ones which once in a while we try. I tell them, come up with the rules that you want to function within this holiday, and I'll type them for you. Yeah, just write the rules in your English, I'll type them for you. Once we type them, we put them, right at the door when you enter the house, just right there. So if people don't do what they want to, what is supposed to be done, I'll simply say, and now it became rule number. The amazing thing, to each other, they now started referring to those rule number. Hey, you have broken rule number. And when it stopped being about my rules, I felt much better. However, like children and adults, they forget. So you have to keep reminding them. And as she said, as they grow, the rules are stepped up. Rules, can you imagine a country without rules? Rules are not enemies. Maybe it's the perception. Without rules, it is anarchy, it's a lawless world. So we must have them. But I am a firm believer in, as you watch your individual children, let them participate. Overall, you are the authority. But the more their participation, the more they'll help you govern themselves. You'll find an easier time. But I forget.
So the more they participate, the more they own. There is ownership in allowing your children to participate in rule setting, even as they grow up.
Yeah, it has also to do with functionality. You remember I asked you a few things before I came, so that I would know some of the rules that I need to follow, so that people would function in this system quite well. So structures and rules are very important. In fact, when Daktari was talking, I remember I sang a lot for the young children, that you are living in my past and I am in your future. So I sit in these two worlds, and so we need to really negotiate. And the moment we begin to negotiate and appreciate each other, because as a young person, they're living in my past, and I'm living in their future.
So they say that what an old person can see while seated, a young child or a young person cannot see even when they're standing on a tall tree. If you're joining us, you're watching Sister Talk, and we are discussing parenting in a modern world. We've just been canvassing the issue of discipline, and I believe you have received something. The issue of discipline starts with self, and parents need to guide their children to develop the ability to be self-disciplined, train them, guide them, affirm them, correct them where they are wrong, but more above all, have shared values as a family. And as you preach water, please drink water as a parent. Don't preach
Role
water,
model.
and drink wine.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's move to the issue of social media and the use of electronics. Last time we mentioned that when a child spends 8 hours on screen, 4 hours of their concentration is lost. So then it leaves us to wonder: shouldn't parents find other ways of stimulating their children?
That one is a question, and the answer is yes. We must find. Incidentally, after our talk here, you know, when something is provoked in your mind, because even as parents on this platform, you're learning.
Yeah.
So I went to keep doing my research, and I found something very interesting that really, I think I was sharing with a friend, and I was telling them, do you know, going to the social media, do you know that when most times you're talking about yourself and putting the best pictures of yourself on social media, you feel so nice. Or like they said, when you send a message and somebody responds with an emoji and all that. And I learned that they say scientifically, it releases the same hormone that is called dopamine, the same hormone that we have when we're having nice food that you've longed for, or when you're doing something you love. Hence, when we get affirmation from the social media, more often than not, that thing is released. So we start associating, and we are not aware, unless, like you said, information must be sorted or must be taught.
You said dopamine.
Dopamine, yes. Dopamine.
It's the same hormone that is
For happiness.
for
It's
happiness,
for
and also
happiness.
addiction.
It's
Now
actually
it
called the
leads
happy
that,
hormone.
the happy hormone. Because it is nice, then you'll get addicted with the time. And the person doesn't even realize they're now addicted. So the social media, that's part of what I was discovering, which I've always known but probably couldn't put a name to it, that the addiction comes from that aspect, and it will lead to now some lapses, not in memory per se, but there's a name they call it, maybe Reverend may remind me, where now, like I'm seated right now and I've not touched the media, my phone, I feel like it's vibrating. There's a name for it. It's unconscious. And most times you want to start looking for messages that are not there because of the feel good aspect. So the social media has the very good aspects. We cannot deny that. But the dangers to a young person, and I was also reading that an average person, this one now is not just young people, spends about 135 minutes on social media straight. Not straight, those intermittent, they're working. But now the children have been at home. You can imagine it's more than the 4 hours. And you'll catch our students. If anything should wake you up as a parent and you have their numbers, and I hope you don't remove us from your phones, students, at 3 in the night, they're online.
Yeah.
Because the sleep is not coming because the social media has conditioned them and changed their world upside down. So we sleep in the morning, in the night we are very active beings. Now what happens in the night?
So I believe you've learned the hormone called dopamine or happy hormone. It's also a hormone that is released that causes addiction in the long term. So you've said that the more you are affirmed on social media, receiving emojis and all that, the more you become addicted and the more you want more affirmation from people.
That.
Yeah, from people you don't know. Let's look at the issue still on social media affecting the ability to think.
I think that's a very exciting thing, and I think I experienced this issue of not thinking, and this is true, and a few people have shared this aspect, that you go and you're asking, or maybe you go to a medical practitioner, and you're talking about your ailment, and they're searching it in a book. Now, I have found, let me say that the social media is a double-edged sword. And I again also looked at it as a supermarket where right now, like Atari said, the time that students or young people have spent, they have all the money to buy everything they need, including poison, if they're not aware. Because the supermarket also stocks things that are used to kill others. Now, that is the reality of the social media. And I can tell you for sure, when we talk about body and body emotions and feelings, it cuts across that there are certain things that make each and everyone happy at a certain level of development. And all these things are available in social media.
In social media.
And even exaggeratively available, and graphically, and with everything that is hidden has been put in the open. So the chances of anyone, including a little child, and I'm seeing parenting has now turned, and children are being given phones, 2-year-old, 3-year-olds, and they are being entertained with cartoons, I think.
Cartoons, YouTube Kids.
Yes. So the social media is taking over. And now with COVID-19, it has even taken over the church. So what are we going to do about the social media? Because that addiction is actually intense and it is fast. I personally have to really control myself. Is this on Netflix or something like that? Because there's so much information, and the way it's captioned attracts anybody. So you got to really exercise self-control. And that is where then we are coming, and the structure in the school was helping the parents. Because there's a time to eat, there's a time to sleep, there's a time to go to class. Now, coming back home, you can imagine the kind of structure then parents are supposed to raise. It is a task, it is a job, it's like a profession. So people have perfected it in the last 7 months. Glory to God. People have said that the best you could do is seek support. Seek support and ask for help, because it is a reality that we have come to learn.
So then what I'm hearing from you two is that, yes, social media has its positives and it has its negatives.
Yeah.
But then it seems the negatives seem to be more overwhelming the positive. So then we are saying is parents, yes, can allow children to access the gadgets, but put up structures that are going to allow the child to develop the ability to play, go outside and play, interact with their friends. So what we are saying is we need to have time
Yes.
time set
Yes.
for
In fact, that's where the
Schedule.
self-regulation is just has to be maximized.
But then, even as we go on a break, self-discipline for a 3-year-old is not something we expect them to have grasped. So we expect that a parent should take responsibility and say, no, you're going to use a phone for 3 minutes. I remember I have 2 small children. My 3-year-old, there was a time she was really into my phone. But I kept saying no. These days I notice she doesn't care about my phone anymore. So she can go. We are going to take a short break right now, and when we come back, we are going to continue discussing parenting in a modern world, looking at the issues that are affecting parents and affecting their ability even to govern their children in this modern world. We've talked about social media, we've talked about self-discipline, we've talked about having shared or common family values that your children can ape even as they look at their parents. We are going to take a short break. See you shortly.